Is it video diary time? I believe it's video diary time. As I get messages from work, but I'm technically still on my lunch break, so it's okay. Something I'm realizing about myself. Well, something I've been struggling with for the past year or so since my breakup. Is the feeling that I am not a simple and digestible person, and that I often feel very lost in translation. And I've been struggling with feelings of insecurity, self-comparison, which I never, ever used to have, which is crazy because at the ages where people usually suffer with that, like high school and even like college, I did not used to have that. I always kind of like felt like I knew who I was and I was confident in myself and being different and being unique. And yeah, I was like quiet and reserved and kind of like a loner and a wallflower, but I never really like looked at other people and like wished I was more like them or wish I looked like them or stuff like that. I also do feel like Instagram and social media has made that tenfold for everybody. I also feel like dating apps, while I don't use them personally, I've had, the person that I dated for years has used them and my friends have used them. So it's like, it kind of messes with your mind a little bit, like to compare yourself to all the options that they might be seeing and following, whether it's on their Instagram or their personal time, you know what I mean? And it gets to you. And so, not to blame anyone really, but myself. But I do feel like I've kind of gained new insecurities and like a new sense of awareness of my flaws, so to speak, or like, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's hard. I find myself being jealous of people who like seem to have it all together or who just have like very simple lives. And when I say simple, I don't know if that's like doing them a disservice because everyone's lives are complex in their own way, right? But like, as someone who is a first generation immigrant, child of immigrants, and someone who just has like these rare personality traits and rare origins and never quite fully fitting into any one group or the other. And that's been a theme for me my whole life. Funny enough, like when I was a kid, so I was born in the US and my parents decided to move to Turkey for a little bit when I was younger. And I remember in elementary school, I kind of was like bullied and outcast. And I remember one day we were moving back to the US and I didn't even understand why or what was really going on. I just knew it was a thing that we were doing. My parents were not the best at like really speaking to us in that way. And so I was sitting in class and my teacher announces to the class that I am going to be moving to America. And I remember this kid, this boy, like kind of said to me like, "Oh, you dirty American, like, yeah, go back there, you dirty American." And I was like, I didn't understand, you know, like I was just like, okay. And then I came to America, to Pennsylvania, middle of bumblefuck nowhere, Pennsylvania, like white Quaker town. And I was outcasted there. And I was put into ESL because I had some English, but not like, it wasn't fluent. So there was also that. I remember sitting in the ESL classroom, and when the kids would be like all let out for recess, sometimes I would be eating lunch in the ESL classroom. Sometimes I would eat with them, but usually not. And I remember hearing them talk about me in the hallway. But yeah, it was always, I guess, like weird. 2 years later into discovering what autism and neurodivergence is. I will say, I was pulled into the gifted program in that elementary school. I was interviewed by some random person who like asked me weird pattern matching questions, and I remember them showing me at the end of it like an amethyst crystal. I don't know why they showed this to me, but she was like showing me how, you know, I don't know if she was trying to connect with me or prove a point or to ask me a question on what I thought, but she basically showed me how, like, you know, she split open the crystal, the rock, and on the outside it was all black and just like ugly kind of, and then on the inside it was like amethyst. But I did have issues both in Turkey and here in elementary school with like speaking during class or lack of focus. And teachers would always say to my parents, like, she seems really smart, but it was always like that. So anyways, fast forward to now, trying to navigate life as an adult. I think in college, in high school, I was also pretty on the outside because of, like, no one was mean to me or anything, but I went to a pretty white high school in a sort of a Republican town. Yeah, so, you know, being of a Muslim background, it's kind of like there was no one really around to understand me. And so I didn't have many friends. Granted, I did have a few good friends that, you know, whatever, shit happens. Not gonna even get into that. But then I went to college, and that was the first time in my life that I ever found a sense of belonging and friendship and a friend group. And I made friends with other ethnic, like, people who kind of were like, they were Americanized, but they were still of ethnic background, so they understood like what it's like, and they were more cultured and less weird about things, whether it be like different food or just the way you interact. It's like, you know, it's a specific way of interacting that I feel only you can understand if you've been exposed to like a different culture at home and a different way of life. If all you've been exposed to is like the Western way of life or like American culture, I'm sorry to say that you're probably not going to really understand certain things just because you don't know what you don't know, right? Unless you're like super cultured or you've like well traveled, or, you know, there's different personalities. I mean, I dated a white guy for like 7 years in college, so or and after. But he was, you know, even though he didn't know certain things, he was more like understanding and accepting, and he had worked with like Hispanic immigrants at his like job that he had, and like he knew different Turkish people from his hometown. So, you know, there's just varying degrees of stuff, but still there was things that he couldn't relate to and couldn't understand, especially with my family. And quite honestly, I feel like even people who are of the same culture as me, while they understand more things, I don't feel like I fully fit in with them either. So I've always been kind of in this weird in-between place. Now, come to perception and self-expression and maybe ADHD and all the things. I just have issues with the way that I present myself. I'm not happy with how I present myself. And again, this whole like clean girl aesthetic and all these aesthetics that I see on Tumblr, whoa, TikTok, sorry. TikTok, it's like, why can't I look like that? Why can't I be put together? No matter how hard I try, something always feels off with me. I feel messy, I feel loud, I feel kind of all over the place. You know, the pictures I post are never like the nice ones. Like, my aesthetic is always slightly a mess and slightly off. I try to make content and it doesn't really take off because it's just messy. And so I've just been struggling with that. And then it's like, I think so deeply about everything that reflects in my, like, I think the mess internally reflects in my real life. And I don't just want to call it mess. I do want to say there's a factor of it, of being like a very multifaceted person, where you just have a lot of different interests and a lot of like parts of your personality, that it's kind of just hard to be one thing. And so I found myself oddly becoming jealous of people who are just one thing or are just simple and integrated into society and have good support systems and cohesive family systems, and they have partners that they're able to have to become a part of their life and integrate into their life, because I never was able to do that. You know, I always felt like I had to hide a part of myself, my real self, and my personal, like, social life from my family. It feels separate. The two things feel very separate. And that caused problems in my relationship, rightly so. But also wrongly so, because I guess the person I was with couldn't empathize or understand. And I was kind of left in the middle, just like drowning in the middle of those two things, while simultaneously being blamed for it. But yeah. So here's the thing, right? Deep down, as I'm saying all this, as I'm speaking and reflecting on myself, it's like I love who I am deep down. But I just feel like I've been lost in translation and not really myself. And I've been burnt out. I've been working since I was 22, since 2019. I've lost my spark that I had when I was younger. COVID happened. That changed the world. I know we were all affected. And honestly, oddly so, like the COVID years were even better than like how life feels now. Life doesn't feel real now to me. And I've had great moments, good moments over the last year. Like last year, being 27 was one of the most transformative years of my life. I'm now 28. I'm afraid that it is not going to top that, quite honestly. So I've been dealing with like those feelings, just like looking back at things, looking back at myself, reevaluating the past, wondering like what the next 2 years will look like before I hit 30. And trying to work on myself, trying to become a better me every single day. But sometimes healing is hard. Healing doesn't always feel good. Actually, it really doesn't feel good at all. I have done a lot of processing and grieving in this apartment, and even before this apartment in the last 2 years. I've done a lot of that, but it feels like that's all I do these days. If I'm not going out with friends and distracting myself with that, I am pretty much just in a state of like analysis paralysis. Or yeah, I've tried therapy a little bit. I dabbled my toes. I dabbled in therapy in the form of BetterHelp. It was not my favorite. And I had a lot of actually like shame about trying therapy and starting therapy when I first downloaded it, but it just kept coming up on my Instagram as an ad, and I was so low. I was feeling so low in February, and like that month since my 28th birthday, I just like my birthday hadn't gone the way that I expected. Neither had the previous 3. Were actually traumatic as fuck, not gonna lie. So it was just like I just went in a downward spiral. And so yeah, I downloaded it knowing that, I don't know, I had complicated views on therapy. I have issues as it is with being understood and validated. I feel like a lot of people in my life don't fully understand me, so I tend to self-isolate, or I go online because I've always felt that people on the internet understand me better than people in real life. And I'm proud of myself that I tried. And, you know, yeah, maybe I didn't find the right fit. I did do a lot of the group sessions. They have a lot of different group sessions that you could just sign up for. It's like as a part of your weekly membership or whatever. And all the group sessions are different, various topics. So I would just go and see, and if one of them interested me, I would sign up for it. And that was like a good little distraction. I got some helpful tips from it. I took notes of things, and also one of my goals was that I wrote down 10 goals for this year, and one of them was attend therapy / counseling. One of them was also attend a fitness class. The other one was improve flexibility. I have started going to yoga this year, so that's been a godsend. I really should have made this my junk journal, shouldn't I have? Anyways. Oh, wow. So yeah, like a helpful tip that I got from one of the group sessions was that when we are depressed, we can be hyperfixated on negative thoughts and focusing on the past or the future. And so a helpful technique is to every day write down 3 things that you did, or 3 things that went right, or 3 things you did for yourself that you're proud of. So 3 positive things every day, which rewires your brain to kind of like remember the positives. And then I wrote this about someone random who spoke on the one of the group sessions about depression and suicidal ideation. So this was a lady, and who spoke, and she was a veteran. So I wrote, a VA Iraq veteran said that when she last had her dark thought, she was in the middle of last year. Sorry, let me restart that. A VA Iraq vet said that when she last had her dark thought was in the middle of last year, whereas before she couldn't get out of bed. She said that when she catches herself, she thinks, why did you say that? Why did you think that about yourself? And I realized that the last time that I had that thought was way too recent, and I never once questioned myself. I completely forgot the promise that I had made myself in Spain to the rainbow. And while I feel disappointed that I forgot my promise, I'm also very grateful to have this reminder. I'm going to move the painting into my bedroom for the time being. I never want to forget the promise I made to myself and to God again, even though I may have suicidal thoughts time to time. Hopefully less and less. Yeah. So that painting, I will show you guys. Oops. 1 second. This painting that I purchased is called Promise, and there's a rainbow going through her, and this is an olive tree and an olive branch and a dove. And when I found this painting, it was very serendipitous, and it was sometime after my trip to Spain when like I had like basically there was a lot of stuff happening in regards to like rainbows, and a lot of synchronicities were happening. And I've written about this, like I might like share the link or something, but in that moment I was like, I've experienced so much beauty in here this week that whatever other hardships that I experience like makes up for it. Like it cancels out the fact, because I was given like this gift. And so I kind of made a promise to myself and to God and the universe or whatever that I would not again say or think like I want to kill myself. granted, you can't always control your thoughts and your feelings. So while that feeling has come back here and there, I try to remind myself of that.